Every winter morning the Alpha King's hunters found the same impossible footprints. Not leading toward the villages, not leading toward the royal palace, but away from both. The tracks belonged to the king's most feared wolves, and every trail ended at the doorstep of one lonely Omega living deep inside the frozen forest. No one understood why. Night after night, those giant wolves appeared through the blizzard carrying shivering, orphaned pups gently between their jaws. Some were only hours old. Some were wounded. Some were too weak to open their eyes. They never took anything from her. They only left another life in her hands. Elena never questioned them. She simply opened her tiny cabin door, lit another fire, wrapped another frightened pup in warm blankets, fed it before feeding herself, then watched the wolves disappear back into the darkness until the next night when they returned with another abandoned child. Soon every orphan wolf pup in the entire territory was sleeping beneath her roof. The woman every pack called cursed had somehow become the only soul the Alpha King's wolves trusted. Then one freezing night, everything changed. The largest wolf Elena had ever seen emerged from the storm, bleeding from dozens of wounds. Cradled gently in his jaws was not an ordinary pup. Around the tiny wolf's neck hung a silver pendant every royal family believed had vanished forever on the bloodiest night in the kingdom's history. The wolf did something no royal guardian had ever done. He lowered his head before Elena, placed the mysterious pup at her feet, then walked away without looking back. By sunrise the Alpha King had declared a kingdom-wide hunt. His wolves had broken every law they had ever sworn to obey. Assassins were already racing toward Elena's cabin. And somewhere in the shadows someone was willing to burn an entire kingdom to silence one forgotten Omega before she discovered why the Alpha King's own wolves had chosen her over their king. The wolves of the Northern Territory feared nothing. Not hunger, not winter, not death. Yet on the coldest night anyone could remember 12 giant wolves stood silently outside a lonely wooden cabin buried beneath endless snow. Each one carried a tiny crying wolf pup between its jaws as gently as a mother carrying her newborn child. Their thick fur glittered beneath the silver moon. Frost drifted through the silent forest. Not one wolf growled. Not one moved. They simply waited. Inside the cabin, Elena Ashwood was placing another log onto the fire. The little room smelled of pinewood herbs and warm soup. It was simple. Old wooden walls, handmade blankets, shelves filled with dried flowers and healing roots. A place forgotten by the world, but never empty of kindness. Then came the knock. Not from a hand, from a heavy paw against the wooden door. Elena froze. Nobody visited this far into the forest after sunset, especially not during wolf season. She slowly wrapped her green wool cloak around her shoulders and reached for the lantern hanging beside the fireplace. The flame danced as she stepped toward the door. Every instinct warned her to stay inside. The knocking came again. Slow, patient, almost gentle. She pulled the door open. The freezing wind rushed into the cabin, carrying snowflakes through the air. Her breath stopped. Standing before her was the largest black wolf she had ever seen. His silver eyes never left hers. Between his teeth rested a tiny gray wolf pup no older than a few weeks. The little creature whimpered softly against the cold. The giant wolf stepped forward. He lowered the pup onto Elena's doorstep. Then he looked into her eyes. For one long silent heartbeat, neither of them moved. The wolf dipped his enormous head, not in threat, in respect. Before Elena could speak, he turned and disappeared into the darkness between the trees. Only the tiny pup remained. It cried once, softly. Elena dropped to her knees without hesitation. She wrapped the shivering little body inside her cloak and carried it into the warmth. There was no question. There never was. Every abandoned life deserved a chance. She warmed fresh goat milk over the fire while the pup rested inside a basket lined with blankets. Tiny blue eyes slowly opened. The frightened little wolf looked around the room before settling on Elena's face. His trembling stopped. He trusted her. A smile touched Elena's lips. Someone had chosen to leave this child here instead of letting him die in the snow. Whoever that wolf had been, he had believed she would protect him. She whispered softly, "You are safe now, little one. No one will leave you again." Outside, the wind howled through the frozen forest. Far away, another pair of glowing eyes watched the cabin before vanishing into the night. Morning arrived wrapped in pale sunlight. Elena stepped outside, carrying a bucket toward the frozen well. The little pup followed behind her with tiny, uncertain steps. His paws disappeared beneath fresh snow, making Elena laugh quietly for the first time in days. Life had become lonely after her parents died. The packs never accepted an Omega healer without a family. They called her weak. They called her useless. Some even believed bad luck followed wherever she walked. But animals never judged. They only remembered kindness. As Elena reached the village market later that afternoon, every conversation suddenly stopped. Eyes followed her. Whispers spread like cold wind. There she is, the strange Omega. She lives with wolves now. Someone laughed. Maybe she belongs with animals because people cannot stand her. Another voice answered, "Do not get close. Bad things always happen around her." Elena lowered her eyes. Not because the words hurt less, because they hurt too much. She quietly traded herbs for flour and medicine before beginning the long walk home. Halfway through the forest, she noticed movement behind the trees. 3 wolves, large, gray, watching her. Her heartbeat quickened, but they did nothing. They simply followed from a distance. Silent guardians, hidden among the snow-covered pines. When she reached her cabin, they disappeared again. That night another knock echoed through the darkness. Elena opened the door. A different wolf stood outside. This one carried 2 tiny pups. He gently placed them beside the first basket before leaving without a sound. The following night 3 more arrived. Then another. Then 2 together. Every sunrise her cabin became louder with tiny paws, playful growls, and hungry cries. The lonely cabin slowly transformed into a nursery filled with life. Elena barely slept anymore. She fed the smallest first, wrapped blankets around the weakest, mixed herbs for the injured, sang soft songs while frightened pups fell asleep against her lap. Exhaustion filled every muscle, but happiness slowly returned to her heart. Weeks passed. Word spread across the territory faster than winter storms. People whispered that abandoned wolf pups from every pack were somehow finding their way to the forgotten Omega in the forest. Some claimed she used forbidden magic. Others insisted the moon goddess herself had blessed her. No one knew the truth, not even Elena. One freezing evening, she carried fresh water inside and counted the sleeping pups. 12. Every basket was full. The fire crackled softly. Snow drifted outside the windows. Then every pup suddenly lifted its head at exactly the same moment. Not one barked. Not one cried. They simply stared toward the front door. Elena felt chills crawl across her skin. Something was outside. Something powerful. She slowly reached for the lantern. The knocking came once. Then again. Slow. Heavy. Almost royal. She opened the door. Her lantern slipped from her fingers. Standing before her were 12 enormous shadow wolves, wearing the silver crest of the Alpha King. Every wolf carried another orphan pup. The legendary royal wolves stepped forward together, placed every child gently onto her doorstep. Then something happened that had never happened in the history of the Northern Territory. One after another, every royal wolf lowered its head before the forgotten Omega. The strongest wolves in the kingdom had bowed to the woman everyone else called worthless. Hidden among the blankets of the final sleeping pup, something silver caught the moonlight. Elena carefully reached inside. Her fingers closed around an ancient royal pendant engraved with the forgotten crest of the moon throne. She had never seen anything like it. She had no idea that miles away inside the royal palace, the Alpha King had just discovered that half of his legendary shadow wolves were missing. And before dawn broke over the frozen kingdom, he would issue one command that would change Elena's life forever. Find the woman living in the forest. Before the first light of dawn reached the frozen peaks, the royal palace was already awake. Footsteps echoed through endless stone corridors. Torches burned brighter than usual. Soldiers hurried across the great hall with fear written across their faces. Something impossible had happened. Something no Alpha King had ever witnessed. Kale Draven stood in the center of the royal wolf sanctuary with snow still clinging to his black boots. His towering frame looked carved from stone. His piercing blue eyes moved slowly across the empty dens. 1, 2, 5, 12. Half of his legendary shadow wolves were gone. These were not ordinary wolves. They were the oldest bloodline in the kingdom. They answered only to the Alpha King. They had guarded the throne for generations without ever disobeying a command. Kale placed his hand against the cold stone wall and closed his eyes. His wolf searched for theirs. Silence. No response. His jaw tightened. That had never happened before. Captain Ronan stepped forward carefully. "My king, we searched the eastern mountains and the southern valleys. There are no tracks leading away from the palace." Kale slowly opened his eyes. "That is impossible. Nothing simply disappears." Another guard entered the sanctuary almost out of breath. "My king, the villages are talking." Kale turned sharply. "Talking about what?" The guard swallowed. "They say your shadow wolves have been visiting an Omega living alone in the northern forest." The entire sanctuary fell silent. Even the horses outside stopped moving, as if the kingdom itself was listening. Kale stared at the soldier. "Say that again." The guard lowered his head. "They say every night your wolves carry orphaned pups to her cabin. Some villagers claim they have seen the wolves bow before her." A low growl escaped Kale before he even realized it. His wolf rejected the story immediately. Shadow wolves bowed to no one, not even kings. "Find the woman. Bring me the truth. Do not harm her unless she attacks first." The guards hurried away without another word. Kale remained standing alone inside the sanctuary. Deep inside his chest his wolf shifted uneasily. A strange feeling passed through him. Not anger, not fear, recognition, for only a heartbeat. Then it vanished. Far beyond the palace walls, Elena had no idea that the most powerful man in the kingdom now knew her name. She was far too busy trying to calm 12 hungry pups who had discovered that breakfast could not arrive fast enough. The little cabin had become wonderfully chaotic. Tiny paws raced across wooden floors. Blankets lay scattered everywhere. One pup had climbed onto the table. Another had stolen a loaf of bread, almost bigger than himself. A third refused to leave Elena's lap. She laughed softly as she picked up the smallest pup. "You are all trouble." The tiny wolf answered with a playful bark before licking her chin. For the first time in years, the cabin felt alive. Not lonely, not forgotten, like a real home. After feeding every pup, Elena noticed the newest arrival sleeping quietly near the fireplace. The baby never cried, never wandered, almost as if he understood something the others did not. She gently adjusted his blanket. Something hard pressed against her fingers. The silver pendant. She picked it up once more. Its surface shimmered in the firelight. The ancient moon crest carved into the metal seemed almost familiar, though she had never seen it before. Tiny letters surrounded the edge. Letters so old they had nearly faded away. She whispered them slowly. The moment the final word left her lips, the pendant became warm. A faint silver glow spread across its surface. Elena quickly dropped it onto the table. The light disappeared. She stared at it in complete silence. Outside, every wolf suddenly lifted its head. At exactly the same moment, a warning. Someone was coming. The forest became unnaturally quiet. Birds stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to disappear. Elena stepped onto the porch. Fresh snow covered everything. Then she saw him. A giant gray shadow wolf emerged from between the trees. His left shoulder was soaked in blood. An arrow remained buried deep beneath his thick fur. He took another step, then collapsed. Elena ran toward him without thinking. No fear, only instinct. She dropped beside the wounded guardian. "Easy. You are safe now." The wolf looked directly into her eyes. Pain filled his silver gaze, yet he made no attempt to attack. Instead, he lowered his massive head onto the snow. Trust. Complete trust. Elena struggled to pull the heavy body toward the cabin. Several of the older pups rushed outside. Instead of hiding, they began nudging the injured wolf together. Tiny bodies helping a giant warrior. Slowly they reached the warmth inside. Elena boiled water, mixed crushed herbs, cleaned the wound carefully. The arrow had been coated with poison, a poison designed specifically for royal wolves, who would dare attack the Alpha King's own guardians. The thought lingered in her mind. Hours passed. The giant wolf remained unconscious. Elena never left his side. She replaced the bandages again and again until the fever finally broke. Near sunset, the wolf opened his eyes. He looked stronger, healthier. He slowly stood. For one quiet moment, he simply watched Elena. Then something extraordinary happened. The enormous beast gently lowered his head against her shoulder. Not as a warrior, as family. Tears gathered in Elena's eyes. She wrapped both arms around his thick neck. "You are not alone anymore. Neither are any of you. Outside, hidden among the trees, another pair of eyes watched the entire scene. Not wolf eyes. Human. A hooded rider turned his horse silently before disappearing into the forest. He had seen enough. Night arrived quickly. Far away inside the royal palace, Lady Seraphine stood beside a tall window overlooking the kingdom. Moonlight reflected across her elegant black gown. A messenger knelt before her. "Did you see it yourself?" "Yes, my lady." The Omega healed one of the shadow wolves. Seraphine remained perfectly still. "Did the wolf attack her?" "No." It bowed its head. For the first time her calm expression cracked. Impossible. No ordinary Omega could earn the loyalty of royal guardians. Unless... She stopped herself. The messenger waited. Seraphine slowly smiled. A cold smile. "Continue watching her. Tell no one, especially not the king." The messenger disappeared. Seraphine walked toward an ancient wooden chest hidden behind a curtain. Inside rested another silver pendant, identical to the one Elena had found. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered to herself, "It cannot be her. She should have died with the rest of them." Meanwhile, the wounded shadow wolf prepared to leave Elena's cabin. Before stepping outside, he looked back one final time. He let out a long hunting howl. The sound rolled across mountains and frozen rivers. Within seconds another howl answered. Then another. Then another. The entire northern forest came alive. Dozens of wolves, calling to one another, answering their guardian. Elena stepped outside, holding the smallest pup close to her chest. She looked toward the dark forest. Glowing eyes appeared everywhere between the trees. Not threatening, watching, waiting, protecting. Then every wolf vanished together into the endless snow. Elena looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. The silver pendant rested beside him once again. This time its glow did not fade. It grew brighter, much brighter. And many miles away inside the royal palace, Alpha King Kale suddenly clutched his chest as his wolf roared louder than ever before. For the first time in his life, he felt an invisible bond pulling him toward someone he had never met. He did not know her face. He did not know her name. But his wolf already did. And before another sunrise, the Alpha King himself would ride into the northern forest searching for the mysterious Omega who had somehow captured the loyalty of his most sacred wolves. The northern forest had never welcomed a king. Its towering pines answered only to the wind. Its frozen rivers remembered every secret buried beneath the ice. Even the wolves walked through those woods with quiet respect. Yet before sunrise the silence shattered beneath the thunder of galloping horses. Alpha King Kale Draven rode at the front of 20 elite guards. Snow burst beneath the hooves of his black stallion as the royal banner snapped against the icy wind. Every soldier remained alert. Hands rested on sword hilts. Eyes searched every shadow between the trees. Kale said nothing. His wolf had been restless since the previous night. The strange pull inside his chest had only grown stronger. It was no longer a feeling. It was a direction, as if someone unseen was calling him deeper into the forest. Captain Ronan rode beside him. "My king, we are close." The villagers said the cabin lies beyond the frozen stream. Kale nodded without looking away from the endless white path ahead. Then the horses stopped on their own. Not because of fear, because 12 enormous shadow wolves stepped out from the trees. The royal guards immediately reached for their weapons. Kale raised one hand. No one moves. The wolves did not growl. They simply stood shoulder to shoulder across the narrow trail. Like living walls. Kale looked into the eyes of the oldest among them. Storm, his most loyal guardian. Storm had protected him since childhood. The wolf slowly walked toward his king. For one hopeful second Kale believed Storm had returned. Instead the giant wolf passed him without even a glance. He stood facing the forest, protecting someone behind it. A strange ache settled inside Kale's chest. His own guardian had chosen another. His wolf growled softly, not in anger, in confusion. Storm lifted his head toward the distant cabin, then looked back at Kale. The message needed no words. "Come alone." Kale dismounted. The guards protested at once. "My king, it could be a trap." Kale handed Ronan the reins. "If it is a trap, 20 soldiers will only make it worse. Stay here. No one follows me." He stepped into the silent forest. The wolves surrounded him, not threatening, watching, judging. Each careful step carried him closer to the small cabin hidden beneath snow-covered branches. Smoke drifted from the stone chimney. Warm light glowed through the windows. It looked impossibly peaceful. Nothing about it resembled danger. Yet Cale felt his heartbeat quicken with every step. Inside the cabin, Elena was kneeling beside the fireplace, brushing the thick fur of the smallest pup. The others chased one another around the room, while the injured shadow wolf rested peacefully near the door. Life had finally found rhythm. Then every wolf froze. Tiny ears lifted. Tail stopped wagging. The wounded guardian slowly stood. He walked toward the entrance. Elena noticed the change immediately. "What is it?" The giant wolf looked directly at her, then lowered his head, as if asking permission. A knock echoed across the cabin. One slow knock. Another. Elena opened the door. Time stopped. A tall man stood before her wrapped in a dark fur cloak dusted with snow. Black hair framed a face both stern and striking. His blue eyes carried the weight of countless battles. The moment their eyes met, the world disappeared. A warm force exploded through both of them. Invisible, powerful, ancient. Cale felt his wolf surge forward inside him. "Mate!" The word roared through his soul. Elena staggered back. Her own heartbeat thundered in her ears. She had never experienced anything like it. Every breath became difficult. Every instinct told her to step closer. Not away. The wounded shadow wolf quietly lay down between them, completely calm, as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. Cale finally spoke. His voice was deep, gentle. "Are you Elena Ashwood?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. And you are—" Before she could finish, every wolf inside the cabin lowered its head toward the stranger. Even the smallest pups sat quietly. Elena looked around in confusion. Only then did she notice the silver wolf crest upon his armor. Her eyes widened. The Alpha King. She instinctively bowed her head. "Forgive me, my king. I did not know." Cale stepped forward. "You have nothing to apologize for." His eyes moved across the cabin. Blankets, tiny baskets, sleeping pups, medicine, simple wooden furniture. No luxury, only kindness. Every abandoned child looked healthy, safe, loved. This was not the home of a criminal. It was the home of someone who refused to let innocence die. Cale knelt beside the smallest pup. The little wolf immediately climbed into his lap. Another followed, then another. Elena smiled despite herself. "They like you." Cale looked at the playful pups. "No. They trust you. That is why they trust me." For the first time in many years, a genuine smile softened his face. It lasted only a moment. Outside, rapid footsteps crushed fresh snow. Captain Ronan rushed toward the cabin. "My king, you must return immediately. The royal council has gathered. Lady Seraphine says it cannot wait." Cale frowned. "I gave orders that no one would interrupt." Ronan lowered his voice. "She says it concerns your future, Luna." Cale's expression hardened. He glanced once more toward Elena. His wolf resisted leaving. Everything inside him resisted. Yet duty won. "I will return." Elena gave a small respectful nod. "Safe travels, my king." As Cale walked away, the invisible bond between them stretched painfully. Both felt it. Neither understood it. Hours later, the Grand Council chamber echoed with angry voices. The kingdom's most powerful alphas stood in a circle around the ancient throne. Lady Seraphine waited near the center, dressed in silver robes that reflected the torchlight like frozen ice. The moment Cale entered, every conversation ended. Seraphine smiled warmly, or at least it appeared warm. "My king, we have troubling news." Cale remained standing. "Speak." She slowly walked closer. "Rumors are spreading throughout every territory. People believe the Alpha King has found his true mate." Several elders exchanged uneasy glances. Seraphine continued, "Your future marriage has already been promised to strengthen alliances with 3 powerful kingdoms. If these rumors continue, our enemies will see weakness." Cale remained silent. She looked directly into his eyes, then asked the question she already knew the answer to. "Did your wolf recognize the Omega?" The room became still. Cale answered honestly, "Yes." Gasps filled the chamber. One elder whispered, "The moon goddess is chosen." Seraphine quickly interrupted, "Or perhaps dark magic has manipulated the bond." Would the kingdom truly accept an unknown Omega living alone with wild wolves as their Luna? The room erupted with debate. Weak, unworthy, dangerous, cursed. Every insult struck harder than the last. Cale closed his eyes. He remembered Elena feeding frightened pups with gentle hands. He remembered the warmth inside that tiny cabin. He remembered the peace he had felt there. His wolf fought him from within. Choose her. Protect her. But the voices around him grew louder. The throne, the alliances, the kingdom, the future. Duty pressed against his heart until it became unbearable. Seraphine stepped beside him. There is only one way to stop the rumors before they become truth. Reject the bond publicly. Silence returned. Every eye settled upon the Alpha King. Cale's hands slowly closed into fists. His wolf howled in agony. He knew what the rejection would do. He knew it would shatter both of them. Yet he also believed it would keep her safe from the ruthless politics of the throne. He looked toward the great doors of the council hall. His voice became almost a whisper. Bring Elena Ashwood to the palace. No one in the room noticed the small, victorious smile that crossed Seraphine's lips. Far beyond the palace walls, Elena stood outside her little cabin watching snow fall gently across the forest. The pups played happily around her feet. She touched her chest where the strange warmth still remained. She did not know why her heart ached. She did not know why tears suddenly filled her eyes. Then royal riders appeared between the trees, carrying the banner of the Alpha King. Their leader stopped before her. Lady Elena Ashwood, by order of Alpha King Cale Draven, you are summoned to the royal palace immediately. Elena looked down at the pups gathering around her boots. None of them made a sound. Even the forest had fallen silent. Somewhere deep inside her heart, a quiet voice whispered that nothing would ever be the same again. The royal carriage cut through the frozen roads beneath a sky heavy with gray clouds. Snow drifted across the winding path like pale ghosts dancing in silence. Elena sat quietly inside the carriage with the smallest wolf pup sleeping peacefully in her lap, while 2 royal guards rode ahead and 2 more followed behind. She had never traveled beyond the northern villages. Every mile carried her farther from the only home she had ever known. She looked through the small window as endless forests slowly gave way to towering stone walls rising from the mountains like giants guarding another world. The royal capital stood before her. Massive gates of black iron slowly opened. Hundreds of soldiers lined the entrance, wearing polished armor that reflected the weak winter sun. Noble families watched from balconies draped with crimson banners embroidered with silver wolves. Merchants stopped speaking. Children stopped running. Every eye followed the strange young woman stepping from the carriage with a tiny orphaned pup wrapped inside her green cloak. The whispers began immediately. That is her, the forest Omega, the one the royal wolves obey. She looks too ordinary. She cannot become our Luna. Elena lowered her eyes but kept walking. She had spent years hearing cruel words. They still hurt, but they no longer controlled her. The little pup stirred inside her arms. She gently stroked his soft fur until he relaxed again. Captain Ronan led her through wide marble halls filled with golden statues and ancient paintings. Every corner spoke of power. Every wall carried the history of kings and queens whose names she had only heard in old stories. She felt small inside such greatness, yet something strange happened as she walked deeper into the palace. The enormous royal wolves resting along the corridors stood one after another. They lowered their heads as she passed. Servants gasped. Even seasoned guards exchanged uneasy glances, and no one had ever seen such a thing. Ronan noticed it too. He looked at Elena with growing uncertainty. You truly have no idea why they do this. She shook her head. That I only gave them kindness, that he said nothing more, perhaps. Kindness was something the palace had forgotten. Far above in her private chamber, Lady Seraphine watched everything from a narrow balcony hidden behind silk curtains. Her cold gray eyes followed Elena's every movement and made step beside her to while Lady the Wolves continued to honor the Omega. Seraphine smiled without warmth. Let them. Soon they will witness her greatest humiliation. She turned toward a carved wooden cabinet and removed a small crystal vial filled with dark silver liquid. The poison shimmered like moonlight trapped beneath I seed. No wound, no blood, and no evidence. Only broken instincts, she whispered softly. Forgive me, Cale. One broken bond is better than a broken kingdom. Downstairs, Elena entered the grand throne hall. Her footsteps echoed across polished stone. The ceiling disappeared high above into shadows where enormous chandeliers glowed like frozen stars. At the far end of the chamber stood the moon throne carved from ancient white stone. Alpha King Kale stood before it wearing black ceremonial armor beneath a long royal cloak. The moment his eyes found Elena, the invisible bond awakened again, warm, powerful, painfully familiar. His wolf surged inside him. Mate, every instinct begged him to walk toward her, to take her hands, to bring her beside him forever. Instead he remained perfectly still. Duty held him where love wished to move him. Elena slowly approached until only a few steps separated them. For several silent moments neither spoke. Kale finally broke the silence. "Did the journey tire you?" She smiled gently. "Not as much as I expected. Your soldiers were kind." He nodded. "I am glad." There was so much both wished to say. Neither knew how. Then the great doors opened. Members of the royal council entered, followed by nobles from every major pack. Their elegant clothing filled the chamber with silver blue and deep crimson. Proud Alpha stood beside richly dressed Lunas. Curious eyes settled upon Elena with open judgment. An elderly council member struck the marble floor with a silver staff. "The gathering has begun." Seraphine entered last, graceful, confident, every movement measured. She bowed before Kale, then looked toward Elena with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Welcome to the palace. I hope our simple home has not disappointed you." Elena answered politely that it is more beautiful than anything I have ever seen. Seraphine inclined her head. Beauty often hides difficult truths. Kale watched the exchange carefully. Something about Seraphine's calm voice unsettled him. The council elders stepped forward once again. "Rumors have spread across every territory. They must end today. The kingdom deserves clarity." Kale drew a slow breath. His heartbeat became heavy. His wolf resisted every passing second. The elder continued. "Alpha King, does this Omega carry the sacred mate bond granted by the moon goddess?" Silence covered the hall. Kale looked directly into Elena's silver-gray eyes. She looked confused, hopeful, trusting that he answered with complete honesty. "Yes," gasps swept through the chamber. The words echoed against ancient stone. Elena felt warmth bloom inside her chest. She finally understood why every moment near him had felt so different, why her heart had recognized him before her mind ever could. Tears gathered quietly in her eyes. She had found her mate, but before joy could settle inside her heart, Seraphine stepped forward. "Then let the kingdom witness your wisdom. My kingdom, a ruler belongs to every pack, not to his own heart." The council members lowered their heads in solemn agreement. Kale closed his eyes. Memories flashed through his mind. Elena feeding hungry pups. Elena smiling despite loneliness. Elena healing his wounded guardian. His wolf roared with desperate fury. Choose her, protect her. Dio not abandon her. Kale slowly opened his eyes again. Pain shadowed every word. "Elena Ashwood, the bond between us is real, but I cannot accept it." Shock froze the hall. Elena stared at him without understanding. Her voice trembled. "What do you mean?" Kale forced himself to continue. "Yes, Alpha King, I reject you as my mate." The words struck harder than any blade. The invisible bond shattered. An unbearable pain ripped through both their souls. Elena staggered backward. Her hand pressed against her chest. She could barely breathe. The tiny wolf pup cried loudly from her arms. Several royal wolves outside the chamber howled together in heartbreaking sorrow. Kale's own knees almost gave way. Every instinct screamed that he had made the greatest mistake of his life. Yet he stood motionless. His face remained expressionless while everything inside him broke apart. Around the hall whispers returned. An Omega could never be queen. The kingdom has been saved. She was never worthy. Every cruel word reached Elena's ears. Not one escaped her. She looked at Kale one final time. She searched his face for hatred. She found none. Only unbearable sadness that frightened her more than anger ever could. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the great doors, and no one stopped her. Not even Kale. She disappeared from the throne hall. Every royal wolf throughout the palace lifted its head and released a mournful howl that echoed across the entire capital. Far away beneath the palace, a hidden passage opened in darkness. Lady Seraphine descended alone, carrying a lantern. She stopped before an iron cage where a hooded prisoner sat chained to the wall. Without speaking, she smiled. "Everything is happening exactly as you predicted." The prisoner slowly raised his head. A scar crossed one blind eye. His remaining eye glowed with quiet satisfaction. Then he whispered words that made even Seraphine's smile fade. "The Omega has left the palace. Now the hunters can begin." The palace gates closed behind Elena with a heavy sound that echoed through the frozen valley like the end of an old life. She did not look back. She could not. Every step away from the capital felt as though invisible hands were tearing pieces from her heart. The mate bond no longer connected her to Kale, yet its wound remained open. It burned with every breath she took. Snow fell quietly around her. The tiny wolf pup pressed closer beneath her cloak as if sensing her pain. Elena held him tighter. "You still have me," she whispered with a trembling smile, "and I still have you." She believed she was walking back toward her lonely cabin. She did not know someone had already reached it before her. Deep inside the royal palace, Kale stood alone in the empty throne room long after the council had left. The torches had nearly burned out. Shadows stretched across the marble floor. Storm slowly entered the chamber. The giant shadow wolf stopped several steps away. For years Storm had always approached his king without hesitation. Tonight he did not. Kale looked at the wolf with tired eyes. "You hate me too." Storm did not move, he simply turned away. That silent rejection pierced deeper than any sword. Kale lowered himself onto the throne, but it no longer felt like victory. It felt cold, empty, heavy. His wolf remained restless. "You lied to yourself. You did not protect her. You abandoned her." Kale closed his eyes. Every memory of Elena returned. Her gentle smile. Her small cabin filled with laughter. The way frightened pups trusted her without fear that he had destroyed the one person who had looked at him without wanting power. That a quiet knock broke the silence. "Enter." Captain Ronan stepped inside. "Why King the Omega has left the capital." Kale answered without opening his eyes. "That I know." Ronan hesitated. "There is something else. Our scouts found strange tracks near the northern road. Not wolves, mercenaries." That Kale's eyes snapped open. "How many?" "Too many to count." Someone was waiting for her to leave the palace. Kale rose so quickly that the throne echoed against the stone wall. "Prepare my horse." Ronan looked surprised. "The council order that you remain in the capital until the winter summit." That Kale's voice became ice. "That I did not ask what the council ordered. That I asked for my horse." Far ahead, Elena continued through the endless forest. Evening slowly swallowed the light. Snowflakes drifted between ancient pine branches while silence settled over the land. Then every bird suddenly flew away. The forest became unnaturally still. Elena stopped walking. Something was wrong. The little pup growled softly beneath her cloak. That a branch snapped somewhere behind her. Another to her left, then another. Dark figures stepped from the trees. 6 men, their faces hidden beneath black hoods. Each carried silver weapons designed to kill wolves. Elena slowly backed away. "Who are you? One of them laughed. "Someone who has been waiting all day." Another raised a sword. "Hand over the royal child." Confusion crossed Elena's face. "What child?" The men exchanged quick glances. "She really does not know." The leader stepped closer. "Do not waste our time. Give us the baby wearing the moon pendant." Elena instinctively looked toward the tiny pup sleeping against her chest. The silver pendant. Her heart pounded. They were not talking about an ordinary wolf pup. Without another word, she turned and ran. The forest exploded with movement. The hunters chased after her through deep snow. Branches tore at her cloak. Cold air burned inside her lungs. She held the tiny pup tightly while racing between towering trees. An arrow struck a trunk inches from her shoulder. Another buried itself in the snow ahead. "Stop. You cannot escape." Elena refused to slow down. Suddenly a deafening howl rolled across the mountains. Then another. Then dozens more. The forest answered. Massive wolves burst from the darkness like living shadows. Storm reached Elena first. The giant guardian placed himself between her and the hunters. His silver eyes blazed with fury. Every other shadow wolf emerged beside him. The mercenaries immediately formed a defensive circle. The leader smiled. "Perfect. Kill them all." Steel flashed beneath moonlight. The battle erupted without warning. Wolves collided with armed hunters. Snow flew through the air. Growls echoed across the valley. Elena stumbled behind a fallen tree, clutching the tiny pup close to her chest. She could only watch. Storm fought like a storm given flesh. 2 hunters fell beneath his jaws. Another wolf shattered a silver spear before dragging its owner into the snow. Yet the attackers had prepared well. Silver-tipped arrows filled the air. One wolf cried out in pain. Another collapsed. Elena could not stay hidden. She rushed toward the wounded guardian, carrying herbs from her. "Satchel, stay with me. Please stay with me." The injured wolf looked into her eyes and stopped trembling. Even in the middle of battle, her hands remained steady. She pulled out the arrow. pressed healing herbs against the wound, wrapped it tightly. The wolf slowly stood again, ready to fight. The hunter stared in disbelief. She healed him in moments. The leader shouted with anger, "Kill the woman first!" Everything changed. Every weapon turned toward Elena. Storm saw it. Without hesitation, he leaped in front of her. .3 silver arrows struck his massive body. The giant wolf collapsed. Elena screamed. Storm, the old guardian, struggled to breathe. Blood stained the white snow beneath him. Elena dropped beside him. "No, please. Not you." Storm slowly lifted his head. With great effort, he nudged the tiny pup toward Elena as if reminding her, "Protect the child. Always." His breathing weakened. The hunters moved closer. Victory filled their eyes. Then the ground itself began to shake. Heavy hoofbeats thundered through the valley. A powerful voice cut through the chaos. "Stand down." Every hunter turned. Alpha King Kale Draven burst into the clearing leading 50 royal riders. His sword reflected the moon like blue fire. His face carried only one emotion, rage. The hunters realized too late who stood before them. "Retreat." Their leader shouted. No one escaped. Royal soldiers surrounded the clearing from every direction. Within moments, the surviving mercenaries threw down their weapons. Kale dismounted before his horse had fully stopped. His eyes searched desperately until they found Elena kneeling beside Storm. Relief washed across his face. Then he saw the blood. Storm. Kale dropped beside his oldest companion. The giant wolf looked at his king one final time. There was no anger left, only exhaustion. Kale placed one trembling hand against Storm's head. "Forgive me, old friend." Storm closed his eyes. His breathing faded into silence. The forest became still. Even the wind seemed to mourn. Kale remained motionless. He had lost the guardian who had stood beside him since childhood. Elena quietly wiped tears from her face. She looked toward the tiny pup still sleeping peacefully despite everything. Something caught her attention. The silver pendant resting beside him had opened during the battle. Hidden inside was a tiny folded piece of ancient parchment. With shaking fingers she unfolded it. Only one sentence had been written upon it. "The true heir lives. Protect Prince Lucien until the Moon Queen returns." Elena stared at the words. Kale slowly read them over her shoulder. Neither of them spoke, because at that very moment both realized the abandoned pup she had rescued was never abandoned at all. He was the missing prince the entire kingdom believed had died years ago. Storm's lifeless body rested beneath a blanket of fresh snow. The great guardian, who had protected kings for decades, had taken his final breath, defending the woman his own king had failed to protect. The forest stood silent around him. Even the wolves lowered their heads. No howl broke the stillness. Grief itself seemed too heavy for sound. Kale remained on one knee beside his oldest companion. His gloved hand still rested against Storm's thick silver fur. Memories flooded his mind without mercy. He saw himself as a frightened boy learning to ride beneath Storm's watchful eyes. He remembered hunting through these very woods with the great wolf always walking beside him. Storm had never abandoned him. Yet in the moment Storm had needed him most, he had arrived too late. Kale slowly closed the guardian's eyes. "You deserved a better king." His voice barely rose above a whisper. Elena stood a few steps away, holding the sleeping infant against her chest. Her own tears had not stopped. She had known Storm for only a short time, yet his loyalty had touched something deep inside her heart. He had carried abandoned children through blizzards. He had trusted her before anyone else ever had. In the end, he had given his own life to protect hers. The remaining shadow wolves gathered around Storm in a perfect circle. One after another they touched their noses gently against his fur before stepping back. It was an ancient farewell, older than any kingdom that No1 spoke. Words were too small. When dawn finally painted the snow with pale gold, the soldiers buried Storm beneath the tallest pine overlooking the valley. Kale planted the guardian's old silver collar beside the grave. He removed his own royal cloak and folded it carefully over the mound of snow. Every soldier watched in silence. Today an Alpha King had never before laid his royal cloak upon another. Kale turned toward the captured mercenaries. Their hands were bound behind their backs. Their faces had lost every trace of confidence. The leader still stared defiantly. Kale walked until only a single step separated them. "Who sent you?" The man smiled through split lips. "Kill me. Someone else will finish the hunt." Kale's blue eyes became colder than the frozen mountains. "Who?" The mercenary laughed again. "You already sleep beside the snake." Before anyone could ask another question, the man's body suddenly jerked and a thin black dart protruded from his neck. His eyes widened, blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Within seconds he collapsed lifeless into the snow. Every guard spun toward the trees. Nothing. The assassin had vanished. Captain Ronan cursed under his breath. Someone wanted that man silenced forever. Cale looked toward the distant forest. This conspiracy reached far deeper than he had imagined. He walked back toward Elena. She still held the ancient parchment tightly in one hand. The words written upon it refused to leave her mind. The true heir lives. Protect Prince Lucien until the Moon Queen returns. Cale looked down at the sleeping child. His expression softened. This child cannot remain here. Every assassin in the kingdom will hunt him now. Elena gently brushed a strand of hair from the baby's forehead. He has already survived because people believed he was only another abandoned pup, that if they learn who he truly is, he will never know peace. Cale nodded slowly. Then our first duty is to keep his name hidden. For the first time since the rejection, they stood together not as broken mates, but as two people carrying the same impossible responsibility. Yet an invisible wall still remained between them. Cale looked at Elena. Did I owe you more apologies than I have words? She remained quiet. He forced himself to continue. Everything I did in the throne room was meant to protect you from the politics of the crown. That I believed rejection would make my enemies lose interest. Instead, I delivered you into their hands. That I was wrong. His voice cracked for the first time. That I failed you, Elena. Looked into his eyes. She saw regret, real regret. Not excuses, not pride. But the wound inside her heart still bled. You did not only reject me, Cale. You rejected the life we could have had. You let an entire kingdom decide what I was worth before asking what kind of person I truly was. The words struck harder than any weapon. Cale lowered his head. You are right. She drew a slow breath. Did I forgive your honesty? But I cannot forgive your choice. Not yet. Silence settled between them once more. Captain Ronan approached carrying a bundle wrapped in thick cloth. Why, King, do we search the bodies? That we found this. That he unfolded the cloth. Inside rested several sealed letters bearing the crest of a silver raven. Cale frowned. That crest does not belong to any northern pack. Ronan nodded. It belongs to an order that disappeared 20 years ago, the Order of the Hollow Moon. Elena looked at the symbol carefully. Something about it stirred a distant memory. She could not explain. As her fingers touched the wax seal, a sudden flash exploded across her mind. She saw a woman dressed in white standing beneath a full moon. A baby crying. Fire consuming a palace. A voice whispered through the darkness. Run. Protect the child. Dio, not let them find the queen. The vision vanished. Elena staggered. Backward. Cale caught her before she fell. What happened? She struggled to steady her breathing. I saw someone. A woman. She was carrying a baby. There was fire everywhere. She called someone the queen. Cale exchanged a worried glance with Ronan. Those were not ordinary memories. They felt ancient, as though the pendant itself had awakened something sleeping inside Elena. Before anyone could speak, another howl echoed across the valley. Not from nearby, from far beyond the northern mountains. Every shadow wolf lifted its head at once. They answered together. The sound rolled across the frozen land like thunder. Ronan looked toward the horizon. Those mountains mark the end of our kingdom. Nothing lives beyond them. An old voice answered quietly from behind. That is what your history books claim. Everyone turned. An elderly man wearing a long gray cloak stood between the trees. Snow covered his shoulders, yet none rested upon his weathered face. His silver beard reached almost to his chest. A carved wooden staff rested in his hand. The wolves did not attack. Instead, they stepped aside. Making a path, the old man walked calmly toward Elena. His wise eyes settled upon her with quiet recognition. At last, you have come farther than even I hoped. Cale instinctively moved in front of Elena. Who are you? The old man smiled gently. Names carry little meaning. But long ago they called me Elder Fenrir. The guardian of the frozen crown. Ronan's face lost all color. That cannot be possible. Fenrir disappeared before my grandfather was born. The old man chuckled softly. Some promises require longer lives than ordinary men possess. His gaze returned to Elena. Child, the wolves did not choose you. The moon herself did. You carry a bloodline that the world believes vanished forever. Elena shook her head. You have mistaken me for someone else. I am only an Omega healer. Fenrir slowly raised his staff. The end glowed with pale silver light. No, you are the last daughter of the first Moon Queen. and if you remain here another single day, every assassin in this kingdom will find you before your destiny ever has the chance to awaken. He turned toward the distant snow-covered mountains. Follow me. Beyond those peaks lies a kingdom the world has forgotten, at a place where neither kings nor traitors can reach, at a place where the truth about your birth has waited for 24 years. Kale looked toward Elena. His heart already feared the answer. Because deep inside he knew that if she crossed those mountains, she might never return. Beyond the northern mountains, the world changed in ways no map had ever recorded. The bitter winds of the kingdom faded behind Elena with every step. Towering walls of ice rose on both sides of the narrow pass like ancient guardians protecting forgotten secrets. The snow beneath her boots shimmered with pale blue light, as though the earth itself remembered old magic. Elder Fenrir walked ahead with steady confidence, while the shadow wolves surrounded the group in complete silence. Prince Lucien slept peacefully in Elena's arms, wrapped inside thick wool blankets. He did not cry. He did not fear. It was almost as though the child already knew he was finally traveling toward the place where destiny had waited for him since birth. Kale remained standing at the edge of the mountain pass long after Elena disappeared from sight. The cold wind whipped through his dark cloak, but he barely noticed it. Every instinct begged him to follow. Every heartbeat pushed him one step closer. Yet he knew his kingdom stood behind him on the edge of collapse. If he abandoned it now, Seraphine would seize complete control before sunset. Elena turned once before the mountains swallowed the path. Their eyes met across the distance. Neither smiled, neither spoke. Too much had already been lost for simple words to repair. Then the mist closed between them. She was gone. Kale stood there until the last echo of the wolves disappeared into the frozen silence. Only then did he whisper into the empty air that I will earn another chance, even if it takes the rest of my life. Far behind him, hidden among the rocks, a hooded figure watched everything. The stranger quietly pulled a small silver mirror from beneath his cloak. Its surface shimmered like still water. The message traveled instantly. The Moon Queen has crossed the mountains. Within the hidden chamber beneath the royal palace, Lady Seraphine lowered the matching mirror. A slow smile appeared across her face. Good. Now the final hunt begins. She walked toward the scarred prisoner chained inside the iron cage. You were right. She lives. The prisoner lifted his head. His single eye burned with quiet hatred. You have delayed fate. You have not defeated it. Seraphine answered with calm confidence. Fate can bleed, and queens can die. She extinguished the lantern and left him alone in darkness. 3 weeks passed beyond the mountains. The narrow trail finally opened into a valley. Unlike anything Elena had imagined, warm rivers flowed through emerald fields untouched by winter. Giant white trees stretched toward a brilliant sky, while waterfalls poured from crystal cliffs. Ancient stone towers stood among flowering forests where silver wolves wandered freely beside laughing children. No walls, no soldiers, no fear. It felt less like a kingdom and more like a forgotten dream. Elena stopped walking. This place is real. Fenrir smiled. This is Linares, the hidden Moon Kingdom, the first home of the Moon bloodline. No outsider has entered these lands for centuries. Men and women working in the fields looked toward Elena. None stared with suspicion. None whispered cruel words. Instead, they bowed respectfully. Welcome home. The simple greeting left Elena speechless. At home. No one had ever called anywhere home before. An elderly woman stepped forward, carrying fresh bread wrapped inside warm cloth. You must be tired, child. The journey has been long. Another young girl reached carefully toward Prince Lucien. May I hold him? Elena hesitated for only a moment before gently placing the sleeping baby into the girl's arms. The child smiled. Looked, he knows us. Fenrir quietly watched Elena's face. You understand now? Respect is not earned by titles. It is earned by the heart. As they entered the heart of Linares, a magnificent palace appeared carved entirely from glowing white stone. Instead of guards holding weapons, wolves rested peacefully beside every entrance. Crystal fountains reflected the afternoon sun, while thousands of silver flowers covered the surrounding gardens. Inside the great hall, hundreds of people waited silently. Young, old, warriors, healers, children. Every eye turned toward Elena. An elderly woman wearing flowing silver robes slowly approached. Her long white hair reached almost to her waist. Her eyes filled with tears before she even spoke. She gently cupped Elena's face. You have your mother's eyes. Elena's breath caught. You knew my mother. The woman smiled sadly. I held you the night you were born. The room disappeared around Elena. Her voice trembled. My parents died when I was little. The woman slowly shook her head. The people who raised you loved you, but they were not your birth parents. The words struck like thunder. Fenrir stepped beside them. It is time that he raised an ancient silver staff. The floor beneath them began to glow. Light spread in graceful circles across. Polished stone until forgotten symbols covered the entire hall. A crystal suspended above the throne awakened with brilliant silver fire. Every person present lowered their head. Fenrir looked directly at Elena. Place your hand upon the moon crystal. She hesitated. What if nothing happens? The old guardian smiled. Then we will know I was wrong. Slowly Elena reached forward. Her fingertips brushed the crystal. The entire palace exploded with light. Silver energy surged through every wall. The crystal rose into the air. Ancient voices echoed throughout the hall. The wolves outside lifted their heads and howled together. A glowing mark appeared upon Elena's wrist, then climbed slowly across her arm. Moon-shaped patterns shimmered beneath her skin before spreading gently across her shoulders. The hall filled with astonished whispers that it is her. The queen has returned. Tears rolled down the elderly woman's face. 24 years. We waited 24 years. Elena looked down at the glowing marks covering her. Hence I do not understand. Fenrir answered quietly. Long ago the first moon queen divided her power among her descendants. Only one heir could awaken it fully. Only one you. Before Elena could answer, Prince Lucien suddenly began crying for the first time since his rescue. The baby reached tiny hands toward Elena. The moment she held in the glowing marks on both of them brightened together. Fenrir nodded. The prophecy continues exactly as written. The queen and the true heir have found one another far away inside the northern kingdom. Kale's world continued falling apart. Reports arrived every hour. Another border village attacked. 2 noble families murdered. Royal supplies vanished. Shadow wolves refused commands from several commanders. Every trail somehow led back to the mysterious order of the Hollow Moon. Captain Ronan spread another map across the council table. King someone is preparing for war. Not ordinary war, civil war. Before Kale could answer, the great doors burst open. A wounded scout stumbled inside, covered in blood and snow. He collapsed to one knee. King. Forgive me, they have taken him. Kale stepped forward. Who? The scout struggled to breathe. The child, the one everyone believed was only another orphan. The baby is gone. Silence crushed the room. Kale felt the ground disappear beneath him. Only a handful of people had known Prince Lucien's true identity. Someone inside the kingdom had betrayed them again. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, a rider carrying the stolen prince was already racing toward a fate that threatened not only the future of the throne, but the life Elena had risked everything to protect. The scout collapsed completely before another word could leave his lips. Blood spread across the marble floor beneath him, while frightened servants rushed forward. Kale knelt beside the wounded man and placed one hand against his shoulder. Tell me everything. The scout struggled to breathe. They attacked before sunrise. They wore no banners. They knew exactly where the child was hidden. They killed everyone guarding the safe house. Only I escaped. His voice faded. They rode toward Black Hollow Pass. Then his eyes closed. The royal healer checked for a heartbeat. He is gone. Silence settled over the council chamber. Kale slowly stood. Every muscle in his body tightened. Someone inside the palace had betrayed them again. This was no random attack. The enemy had known the exact location. Captain Ronan stepped beside him. King. There are fewer than 10 people who knew where the child was hidden. Kale looked around the chamber. Faces lowered immediately. Fear spread faster than words. One traitor stood somewhere among them. Kale drew his sword. Its silver blade reflected the torchlight. Seal every gate. No one leaves the capital. Search every room, every office, every secret passage. Until the traitor is found, the palace exploded into motion. Meanwhile, beyond the northern mountains, Elena stood alone upon the highest balcony of the Moon Palace. The valley below glowed beneath the evening sky. Children laughed beside crystal rivers. Silver wolves rested peacefully beneath ancient trees. Everything felt calm, yet her heart refused to rest. She placed one hand against the glowing moon mark upon her wrist. It had grown brighter every day. Sometimes it became warm without warning. Sometimes she heard whispers carried by the wind. Tonight the warmth suddenly became unbearable. She gasped. Her knees nearly gave way. Fenrir appeared beside her almost instantly. You felt it. She nodded slowly. Something terrible has happened. The old guardian closed his eyes. The moon bond speaks through blood. Someone carrying royal blood is endangered. Elena's heart stopped. Lucien. Without waiting another second, she ran through the palace. The great hall filled quickly as warriors gathered around Fenrir. The old guardian raised a staff. The hidden kingdom has remained silent for 20 years. That silence ends tonight. Every warrior struck one fist against the center of their chest. Their armor gleamed beneath silver light. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were the forgotten Moon Guard, the protectors who had vanished from history after the royal massacre. Young Rowan stepped forward, that no longer the frightened orphan Elena had rescued years ago. Now he stood tall, broad-shouldered. His white cloak carried the crest of the hidden Moon Kingdom. His silver eyes reflected quiet confidence as he bowed before Elena. Mother, give the order. The word caught her by surprise. Every orphan she had rescued now stood behind Rowan. Not children anymore. Strong men and women, archers, healers, warriors. Each one carried the same fierce loyalty she had once seen inside Storm. Elena looked at every familiar face. She remembered feeding them beside the fireplace, bandaging scraped paws, singing them to sleep. Now they stood ready to fight for her. Tears briefly filled her eyes, then determination replaced them. We bring Lucien home, no matter who stands in our way. The valley answered with hundreds of howls. The Moon Guard marched before sunrise. Far across the mountains, Kale followed the kidnappers through Black Hollow Pass. Fresh tracks cut across the snow. Broken branches marked their desperate flight. Storm was gone. Yet the remaining shadow wolves still guided him. One suddenly stopped beside a frozen stream. The great wolf lowered his nose toward the ice. Kale dismounted. There a small silver button rested beneath the snow. Ronan picked it up. This belongs to the palace guard. Kale's expression darkened. The traitor did not simply reveal the hiding place that he traveled with the kidnappers. Before anyone could speak, an arrow struck the tree beside Kale's head. Then another. The cliffs above exploded with movement. Dozens of masked warriors appeared among the rocks. Silver raven banners rose into the wind. The leader removed his hood to a scar, crossed his face from forehead to jaw. Welcome, Alpha King. We have been expecting you, Kale. Raised a sword. Where is the child? The stranger smiled. Already beyond your reach, attack. The mountains erupted into battle. Arrows darkened the sky. Steel crashed against steel. Snow burst beneath charging wolves. Kale fought like a man, carrying nothing left to lose. His sword moved with terrifying speed. One enemy fell. Then another. Still more appeared. They had prepared this ambush for weeks. High above the battlefield, hidden behind broken stone, Lady Seraphine watched everything unfold. Her elegant cloak blended into the mountain shadows. That a hooded messenger approached quietly. My lady, the Alpha King will survive this. Seraphine never looked away. He is supposed to survive. His suffering is part of the plan. The messenger hesitated. And the child? She smiled. The child is only bait. The real prize is still beyond the mountains. Elena. That very moment the Moon Guard reached the border, separating the hidden kingdom from the northern lands. Fenrir suddenly raised one hand. Everyone stopped. The old guardian knelt beside a patch of fresh snow. He touched it gently. Magic. Dark moon magic. Elena stepped beside him. Can you follow it? Fenrir nodded. Barely. Someone powerful hides their trail, but not well enough. Rowan looked toward the distant peaks. Smoke. Everyone turned. Black smoke rose into the gray sky. Elena recognized the direction immediately. Black Hollow Pass. Without another word, she began running. The Moon Guard followed. Hours later, both armies reached opposite sides of the same battlefield. Kale stood surrounded by enemies. His armor was torn. Blood ran down one arm. Ronan struggled beside him. The shadow wolves fought with desperate courage, but they were being overwhelmed. The enemy had surrounded them completely. The scarred commander laughed. Look around, Alpha King. No one is coming. You die here. Kale tightened his grip upon the sword. Then every wolf suddenly lifted its head. A new howl echoed across the mountains. Different, stronger, ancient. The enemy turned. Figures emerged. Through the swirling snow. Not dozens. Hundreds. Silver-armored warriors advanced in perfect silence. White wolves ran beside them. At their center walked a woman wearing a flowing white battle cloak. Silver patterns glowed across her arms. Her hair danced beneath the winter wind. Her eyes carried calm fire. Kale forgot to breathe. Elena. She had changed, and no longer the lonely Omega living inside a wooden cabin. She carried herself like someone born to command kingdoms. The moon guard stopped behind her. Every warrior bowed their head. Fenrir struck his staff against the frozen ground. The queen of the moon bloodline has returned. The mountains themselves seemed to answer. The enemy soldiers stepped backward. Fear spread through their ranks. The scarred commander frowned. Impossible. She was supposed to remain hidden. Elena looked directly at him. Your Huntons today. The moon mark upon her arms shone brighter than ever. Every wolf on the battlefield rushed forward together. The final battle for the future of the kingdom had begun. The frozen valley shook beneath the thunder of charging wolves. Snow burst into the air as silver-armored warriors collided with the soldiers of the hollow moon. Steel rang against steel. The cries of battle rolled between the mountains like endless storms. Yet through all the chaos, Elena moved with calm determination. She did not run blindly into the fight. She walked forward with steady steps, while the glowing moon mark upon her arms lit the battlefield like pale dawn. Every enemy who looked into her eyes hesitated, not because they feared a warrior, because they felt they were standing before someone history itself had returned. The scarred commander recovered first. Do not stop. Kill her before the power fully awakens. That a dozen assassins rushed toward Elena together. Before they could reach her, Rowan stepped into their path. The frightened orphan who had once hidden behind Elena's cloak was gone forever. Now he fought with fearless precision. His sword flashed through the cold air. One attacker fell, then another. The moon guard closed ranks around Elena while the shadow wolves crashed into the enemy lines from the opposite side. For the first time, both forgotten bloodlines fought together instead of apart. Kale watched everything unfold with disbelief. The kingdom had spent generations believing the moon guard had vanished forever, yet here they stood alive, loyal, waiting only for their true queen. The battle raged across the valley. Captain Ronan fought beside Fenrir, though neither had met before that day. Without speaking, they protected one another as if years of friendship already existed between them. Far beyond the front lines, a small covered wagon rolled toward a narrow mountain trail guarded by only 6 soldiers. Inside that wagon, Prince Lucien slept peacefully. The kidnappers believed no one had noticed. They were wrong. One of Elena's wolves suddenly stopped fighting, its nose lifted toward the wind. Then it sprinted away from the battlefield. Elena saw it disappear between the rocks. Her heart understood before her mind did. Lucien. She turned toward Rowan. The child is not here. Rowan nodded immediately to go. We will hold them. Without hesitation, Elena ran after the wolf. Kale saw her leave, but he followed without thinking. Neither spoke. Both simply trusted the same instinct. They crossed a frozen stream, climbed broken cliffs, slid through deep snow. The wolf finally stopped beside a hidden mountain road. Ahead, the wagon raced toward an ancient stone bridge hanging over a bottomless gorge. The 6 guards noticed Elena. Raise the bridge. One shouted. Massive chains groaned. The old bridge slowly began lifting. Kale reached Elena's side. If it rises completely, we lose them. Elena looked toward the widening gap, then toward the frightened horses pulling the wagon. She whispered softly, "Easy." The horses suddenly slowed, not from fear, from recognition. Animals had always answered her kindness before they answered commands. The guards shouted in panic, "Move! Move!" The horses refused. Kale smiled for the first time in many days. "They trust you." Together they charged. The first guard rushed toward Kale. One strike ended the fight. Another attacked Elena. Before his blade could reach her, a white wolf leaped from the rocks and knocked him into the snow. Within moments, the road fell silent. Elena climbed into the wagon. Prince Lucien opened sleepy blue eyes. The moment he saw her, he smiled. His tiny hands reached toward her. She gathered him into her arms. "You are safe, that I promise." Behind them, slow applause echoed. Across the bridge, Lady Seraphine stepped from the shadows. She wore black armor instead of royal silk. Her silver hair flowed freely in the mountain wind. Dozens of elite warriors surrounded her. She looked toward Elena with cold amusement. How touching! The forgotten healer finally found her prince. Kale moved protectively beside Elena. "That it ends here, Seraphine." She laughed quietly. "Did I know, Kale, that it began 24 years ago? You simply never knew." She removed a small silver crown from beneath her cloak. "Do you recognize this?" Kale stared at it. The crown of the first moon queen. "Did it disappear the night the royal family was slaughtered?" Seraphine nodded. "Because I took it." Silence settled over the bridge. She continued without regret. "The old queen believed mercy created loyal people. She was wrong. Mercy creates weakness. Power belongs only to those willing to seize it. Fenrir's voice suddenly echoed behind them. And that belief destroyed your soul. The old guardian arrived with Rowan and the moon guard. The remaining shadow wolves surrounded the bridge from every direction. Seraphine looked around. For the first time, confidence faded from her face. Fenrir stepped forward. Tell them the truth. Tell them who ordered the massacre. Tell them who tried to murder Prince Lucien before he could speak his first word. Seraphine remained silent. Rowan slowly removed the glove from his left hand. A faded scar crossed his wrist. Did I remember that night? Did I was only a child hiding beneath the palace stairs? Did I saw everything? Every warrior on the bridge turned toward him. Rowan continued. You carried the prince yourself. You handed him to hired killers. You ordered the palace burned. You murdered the queen. You murdered the king. Your own sister. Kale's face turned pale. Sister. Seraphine looked directly into his eyes. Yes, the woman I killed was my own sister. She was too gentle to rule. Someone stronger had to build a new kingdom. Kale lowered his sword. Not from surrender, from heartbreak. Everything he had believed about his family shattered in a single moment. Seraphine suddenly raised her hand. Dark silver fire burst from her palm. The bridge exploded beneath everyone's feet. Stone cracked, wood splintered. Prince Lucien slipped from Elena's arms. The baby slid toward the broken edge. Elena threw herself forward without hesitation. Her fingers caught the child's blanket only inches before the endless gorge swallowed him, but her own body slid toward the edge. Kale reached for her. His hand closed around hers. For one terrifying moment both hung above the abyss. The broken bridge groaned beneath them. Kale refused to let go. Never again, do you hear me? Never again. With Rowan and Ronan pulling from behind, they finally lifted Elena and Lucien back onto solid ground. The moon mark across Elena's arms suddenly blazed. Brighter than the sun, the ancient crown in Seraphine's hand began glowing. It flew from her grasp, crossed the battlefield, and gently settled upon Elena's head. Every wolf in the valley bowed. Every moon guard knelt. Even the remaining shadow wolves lowered themselves before her. The wind itself seemed to fall silent. Fenrir smiled through tears. The moon has chosen. There is nothing left to decide. Seraphine looked around in disbelief. She had lost. Not because someone defeated her with greater cruelty, but because loyalty had defeated fear. Royal soldiers slowly surrounded their former advisor. This time none obeyed her commands. She dropped to her knees. The war was over. Kale looked at Elena. The lonely Omega who had once lived inside a forgotten cabin now stood crowned beneath the open sky while wolves and warriors honored her as their rightful queen. Elena looked down at Prince Lucien sleeping peacefully in her arms. Then she looked toward Kale. There was still pain between them, still. Memories that could never disappear. But for the first time since the day he rejected her, there was also hope. And beneath the quiet light of the rising sun, the people of two kingdoms witnessed the beginning of a future built not upon fear or blood, but upon compassion that had started years earlier with one lonely woman opening the door of a small cabin to save a single abandoned wolf pup.